Amazing, sir. Wow, it's amazing. Definitely, it was myth burster for many of us, and it is full of knowledge which through which you have enlightened us. Over to Satish, sir. Uh,
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you for that masterclass. I can only say that, and excellent. And I can see my good friend Murali nodding his head. It means must be a real masterclass. Man, I've heard you for years, and it's always very clear thoughts. There's no confusion anywhere. And if there is confusion, it means the science itself is a confusion, and not you. And thank you so much for spending your time, valuable time, and enlightening all of us on variants. Yes, as you rightly said, there are a lot of what you call nomenclature issues, and those things. You made it very simple. The variants of concern and variants of importance. So, and then vaccine, touching on vaccine. Thank you so much. And it was a lovely, lovely, very enlightening talk on variants. Shilling Swami, we have questions. Just pick up good questions and ask Ravi, and all of us will listen to the answers. Is it there in the chat box, or somebody is going
in
to?
the chat box, yeah.
Okay.
The chat box, I could.
Yeah.
The chat box, I could see a few questions.
Yeah.
Any specific reason for age group being affected in every way?
Can you tell me what the question is? I can't see it in the chat box.
Yes, sir. Any specific reason for age group being affected in every way?
I didn't understand the question. I think there is no age preference for COVID. In the first wave, we saw a little more of elderly people. But if you actually look at age distribution, all ages get the infection. The people with comorbidities and the people who are elderly are the ones who develop severe disease and death. This is a well-known factor. I don't think I have to tell this audience. Over.
So I guess most of the questions in the chat box have been answered very well from you in your talk only, sir. I would like to hear a comment from Dr. Murali Mohan, sir.
I mean, I don't think it really needs a comment, but I mean, that was outstanding as usual, Ravi. It's we don't expect anything less from you, and you always deliver. So that was absolutely brilliant. Can I ask a question instead? So, you know, the mRNA vaccines, they code for a particular protein, or is it a bunch of proteins that constitute the spike protein?
Right now, it's the full spike protein gene mRNA.
So why did they choose a single protein when we know the spike protein is likely to suffer mutation? We've known from the beginning that corona is a highly mutable virus.
All properties, important properties of this virus are endowed in this protein. A, it's a surface protein. This is the protein that engages with the receptor and enables virus to get in. Consequently, neutralizing antibodies to this particular protein are the most important. Yes, that's where the virus also mutates. That's where probably if you use only receptor binding domain stretch of mRNA, you know, the spike protein itself is a pin-shaped protein. It has a head and it has a stem. The head is the one, in one particular portion of the head is the one that engages with the receptor. That's called RBD, receptor binding domain. And that's where viruses are mutating. So if you have an mRNA to the entire spike protein, that's more advantageous. As the saying goes, if you can't catch the lion by its head, you can catch it by its tail. So conventional wisdom tells us that whole virus vaccines would be definitely better in handling variants. Because remember, we do not have much information on envelope and matrix protein. These are also surface proteins on their protective ability. That's where probably, I don't know, probably Covaxin will score over subunit vaccines, be it RNA vaccines or be it, viral vector vaccines, because you're targeting only one particular, as you rightly said. So, but we'll have to wait. This will. But most, whatever studies, few studies on Covaxin have borne that out, that it is equally effective against variants. So, of course, this is something that is very preliminary. I'm not promoting Covaxin. I'm just telling you the science behind it. That if you have a whole virus, the immune system, I've gone on record saying that whole virus vaccines are like a buffet. You get a taste of everything. Whereas the subunit vaccines are like a la carte. You order and get only one dish for what you want.
I've always said the same, so that's a lovely analogy which I shall use with your permission.
Please.
Yeah.
Sir, your comment on when do we actually target herd immunity for this particular?
Well, last year we were all gung-ho saying that 75% seropositivity, we will reach herd immunity, but what the virus stumped us because of its mutations. So with mutations and variants coming in, herd immunity looks a little distant. Now herd immunity is more associated with how many people you can get vaccinated, because we know vaccination prevents serious disease and death. And I would say if we reach the stage of where Israel is today, then we will get herd immunity. That means Israel has already covered close to 80% with one dose and 60% with two doses. Once you reach that, then probably we'll reach herd immunity.
Ravi, if I ask a question, Shivling Swami, if you permit me. Ravi, I see sporting events, for example, Wimbledon, and you see none of them are masked. Is this okay? Because if you see the vaccine protection, and it protects against, as you rightly said, the severity of disease and hospitalization, mortality, morbidity. But is it okay like this? And
Satish, I don't have to tell you. I don't have to tell you it's not okay. You are very seasoned HIV person. You know that behaviors are the most difficult to change, although they're the easiest method of controlling an infection. Wearing mask is much, and maintaining distance and avoiding crowds is much more economical and effective compared to vaccination. But human beings are a very selfish species. They want to perpetuate their behaviors, so they use vaccine as an excuse. And let me also share with you something I heard yesterday evening. I have very close friends in UK. They called me, and one of my friends told me that 1,500 Scottish fans landed up in London to enter Wembley Stadium, and they didn't have tickets. So they got so angry, they went to Trafalgar Square, had a great party, and they partied whole night. They, of course, drank a lot. You know how Scots drink.
Yeah.
Finally, when they went back, 1,200 of them were infected. But none of them hospitalized.
Yeah.
Well, we have to wait another week for Wembley and Wimbledon, both which have opened up, to see how the surges are going to be.
Okay.
Same with America. It's wrong. I don't know what they have in mind, but they both have said no masks. I'm not for it. But of course, the choice is the country's. You can't help it.
Okay. Ravi, is there any vaccine in development which is going to protect? You mentioned briefly about the nasal vaccine.
The Bharat Biotech nasal vaccine has shown tremendous promise in animal, the preclinical studies, and it showed great promise in phase 1 and phase 2. There are 4 nasal vaccines that are under trial all over the world. One from Australia, one from America, one from India, and a third one, I don't remember. All of them are showing promise. So if they bear out that they can cut transmission to 90%. That's very good news.
Yeah.
And remember, nasal vaccines, of course, administration is not as simple as oral vaccines. But then you have the advantage of taking it to the community and spraying something into somebody's nose. You don't have to get somebody, and you don't need a syringe and a needle to inoculate vaccine, right? So that way, hopefully, the nasal vaccines turn out promise, they hold the same promise as they are doing in initial phases of trial. I think we'll have we'll be much better.
Shivlang Swami, can I ask a question, Shivlang Swami?
Yes, sir, please.
Sir, I'm Dr. Ranganath from Narayan Hrudyalaya. Sir, I wanted to ask a question. Like, can you throw some light on predicting the third wave going to be a pediatric patients in the pediatric wave? What's the science behind that, and is it all because of the logistics for the vaccine availability?
I've gone on record as one of the first people to stick my neck out and say children will get infected more. Of course, it got distorted and said children will have serious illness. That's not what I meant. This is pure common sense in public health. Virus will seek out susceptible individuals. Children are susceptible. Last year we said they don't have ACE2 receptors, which now we know is bunkum. They have the same complement of ACE2 receptors. Number of children getting infected between first wave and second wave increased. But the good news is most of the children mount an appropriate response and they have a very mild infection. Small proportion of them will develop serious complications, especially MIS-C, which is multi-inflammatory system disease following COVID. And in terms of numbers, my own selfish reason for saying watch out for children was A, there's no vaccine for them. B, if you open up schools and they were protected for 1.5 years, when they come out, they're going to get exposed and they're going to get infected. And India has 30 crore children. 0.1% also is humongous in terms of serious disease. And we do not have that kind of infrastructure in the periphery. All our pediatric intensive care units are restricted to tertiary care centers. Last most important selfish reason is 30 years I spent in encephalitis, traveling the breadth and length of this country. Encephalitis occurs in outbreaks in districts. Pediatric intensive care is in cities. So I think our children deserve at least 5 to 10 beds in every district hospital. And if we do not seize this opportunity, it will be a very badly missed one. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I'm happy to say yesterday the finance ministry is around 29,500 crores. A big chunk of it is for building pediatric infrastructure at district level. So I think I can sleep peacefully tonight.
Ravi, there is Shivling Swami. There's an interesting observation, or not a question. I see. Why swab reports maybe not connected? Why swab reports not mentioning false negatives percentage in bold letters? Many still depend on it and losing lives. 4,000 have died alone in second wave approximately. There's another question. You can answer this. Is there any?
Well, let me tell you that when we say PCR has 95% sensitivity, there are a lot of caveats in that. A, that the sample has been collected at the correct time. Remember, there is a window for the positivity of any test in microbiology, whether it is HIV or whether it is arbovirus or whether it is COVID. The best time to collect specimen is 5th to 7th day after virus is entered or immediately after somebody is symptomatic. Now it is presumed that people on the ground know when to collect sample. 2, sample should be transported properly at the appropriate temperature. And 3, it has to be tested. And 4th, the competence of the lab. All these are variables in PCR test. So
I have a to that.
let me complete, Dr. Chetan. I know you are a very aggressive proponent of not testing. Let me complete my point and then you can make your points. As I said, I am not going to be prescriptive. I will make my points. It's up to you to decide what you want to decide. Let me make it very clear. Testing is very, very, very important for 2 reasons. You have to track and you have to isolate. And number 3, because large number of asymptomatics also are transmitting infection. Number 3, to detect variants, you need a test. If you are getting a new Frankenstein monster, it is only through a test. So I'd stop here. Now you can make your points.
So that's what getting infected is not an issue. Infection becoming severe is an issue. So should we concentrate on the cases becoming severe, or we should go on testing and testing endlessly? Because in a
I'm not competent to settle this argument. I believe it's a public health principle that testing, tracking, isolating, and monitoring people who are in isolation. That is where the second wave failed.
but in a yes, sir. So we are seeing this throughout the 2-3 viruses. So it's pretty straightforward in a peak of the pandemic. So 99.9% what all the cases are coming of cough, fever, fatigue, it's all of COVID only. So we should see whether the patient is having mild symptoms or is he going for a moderate or a severe clinically to save the life. So over dependence on this test, because me and Dr. Sandeep are traveling, to the rural parts of Karnataka. Wherever we go, we are seeing that they're still depending on the swab test. They're waiting for the reports, and if it comes negative, they're not believing at all it has COVID. And many in a village, single village alone, 30 people have died, thinking it as a natural death. So many don't understand the false negatives, and they still depend on it. That's the issue, sir. Not for the testing. Let them test. There's no. But in a country like India, when they take this test only as seriously and depend on it and not treat the patient, that becomes an issue.
Can I just say, Dr. Chetan, don't blame the test for the failure of the system. And you and Dr. Sandeep have done a great job going and educating people. That's what is needed.
Because if we don't mention boldly in the report about this false negative percentage, it will still continue, sir. That is our keen observation made through all our visits, where many PHC doctors, ASHA workers, nurses don't understand this.
Can we postpone this discussion? Dr. Satish will recommend it to the task force. Let's see what they say, and Dr. Ravi can also take it up there. Let's allow others to ask questions.
Okay.
There's a small question from my side. What research is being going on regarding antivirals, specifically concentrating on COVID?
Antivirals?
Yes.
Are you asking antiviral drugs?
Antiviral agent drugs, yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, many molecules that have worked in silico on the computer have failed even in the cell culture system. Remember, it's a jackpot to get an antiviral, any antiviral, because you have to have, and the best example is herpes. Herpes, we got antiviral because it works specifically on thymidine kinase of herpes simplex virus at a particular stage when the virus replicates. So it does not harm cellular. Remember, any drug that is developed can also harm normal cellular metabolic processes and cellular nucleic acid. So, and none of these ACE2 inhibitors will work because competitive inhibitors, you have to have been taking them before you get the infection, and that doesn't work. So it is going to be a long time unless we get drugs that probably work on the virus specific RNA dependent RNA polymerase, especially for SARS-CoV-2. That is far away. Whatever we have is all repurposed RNA dependent RNA polymerase drugs from either flu or from Ebola.
Any other questions is invited?
I think we are past
There
time.
are quite a few. There are quite a few in the chat box. If somebody wants to read them, I'm willing to answer.
Is there anything interesting there?
When can we
Sir,
say
can
it
I
has
ask a
become
question?
endemic?
Sir,
Yes,
can I
please.
ask? Sir, there is a, I think it is off the topic. I just heard the discussion on mucormycosis affecting the sinus, and there is a link between herpes virus and mucor. They are treating with acyclovir, and I don't know whether mucor will stimulate the indolent viral this thing, or what is the reason for the pain and other things. Sir, can you just throw a light why the mucor and herpes are linked? Is there any link?
I am very happy to tell you, I don't know anything about this. I'm not a person who can answer all questions. This is news to me. I don't know anything. If there's anybody else, they can enlighten.
I guess in the interest of time constraint, we would like to stop all the questionnaires now. And
Killing Swami,
yes, sir.
a last one. I think there was a question in the chat box. What is the timeline of the third wave which sir is predicted? That's probably an interesting question to answer.
Yes,
I'll refer it to the startup company I've started known as Viral Astrology Incorporated, which I am CEO and MD. Having said that, of course, I charge when you refer matters there. Let me tell you that generally it is 3 to 6 months between. You should understand why. Because what we do in a lockdown is we prevent human to human interaction. There's a surge, and people generally realize, oh God, this is a serious matter. They wear masks. So they come and do it for 1 to 2 months. Then also unlocking is a regulated process. The moment you allow crowds in closed spaces and give 4 weeks, human memory is so short-lived, people go back to what they want to do. As I said earlier, Satish knows this more than me. We know about HIV behaviors. But the only thing is we have an alternative now, because alternatives change behaviors. Rules don't change behaviors. Knowledge doesn't change behaviors. The alternative is vaccination. So 3 things will determine when the third wave will come. A, how quickly we get vaccines across. B, how responsible people are there in avoiding crowds and wearing masks. And C, emergence of variants. I hope we don't get another Frankenstein monster. We have enough in the form of Delta and others. So these things will govern. My own guess is the IIT Kanpur has done a fantastic prediction so far in the first wave and in the second wave. IIT Kanpur predicts that there are 3 models. If people go back to pre-COVID behavior, you will get it in September. If people follow some precautions, you will get it by October. If vaccination cover and people behave responsibly, you will not get it until December, and it will be a blunted way. So that will be my answer.
That's nice.
wonderful, sir. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes, sir.